Okay, so Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is out now. Hard to believe it's been like 6 years since the second one came out in 2017. Is that the longest time between sequels for any Marvel movie? Definitely feels like it. Guardians of the Galaxy was always one of the most enjoyable series in the Marvel franchise for me. I definitely have soured on superhero movies in general a bit since then, and particularly the Marvel ones. I'd say back in 2017 I was probably still liking about 70-75% of what they were putting out, and nowadays it's probably more like 50. Fortunately though, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 actually kind of brought me back to that slightly better era of superhero movies. The James Gunn superhero movies just kind of hit different, man. He just gets it. He has a knack for superhero shit throughout his career. Even with some of his more obscure non-franchise movies like Super and Brightburn, there's a reason why this guy has been able to get both Marvel and DC to let him lead major projects. The two main things that always made Guardians of the Galaxy stand out from the other Marvel series were the humor and the soundtracks. Fortunately, both of those things are largely intact here. That's not to say that there's zero corny jokes here, obviously. We are still dealing with a Marvel superhero movie, but comedically it is noticeably a lot better than some other recent entries like Ant-Man Quantumania or Thor Love and Thunder. The soundtrack is on fire again too. My favorite song selection was probably We Care a Lot by Faith No More. I also sort of feel bad for James Gunn that the Mario Bros movie just used No Sleep Till Brooklyn as a hype song, but it definitely did fit way better in this movie in my opinion. Where I really respect this movie for taking a risk is with the story. It is called Guardians of the Galaxy, right? But I don't think anyone would really disagree that the first two entries were kind of Star-Lord movies with a really great supporting cast. This time I would straight up say that Quill is not the main character of the movie. It's mainly about Rocket Raccoon's origin story, and even other characters like Nebula get more use than Quill. That may bother some people, because to be honest, he's kind of just being emotional for most of the movie and not so much of a swashbuckling badass, but I was fine with it because it gave the other characters more time to shine. The story is actually pretty dark too. Lots of backstory for Rocket where we basically see that he's been the victim of cruel experimentation from an intergalactic mad scientist who's basically doing like a mix of eugenics and creating cyborg animal hybrids to eventually make the perfect race to inhabit his vision of utopia. The High Evolutionary is definitely my favorite Marvel villain in years, honestly maybe ever. Chukwudi Iwuji absolutely killed it, seriously great performance. When he's like fully unhinged and losing his shit, it's absolutely intense. Feels great to have an original villain that's not just roaming around space looking to dominate everyone with his absurd levels of strength and power. He actually has a pretty clear and understandable goal, and he's not just looking to inflict suffering on people because he enjoys it. He just simply does not care one way or the other. Anything standing in the way of his goal is an acceptable sacrifice. There's no elaborate revenge plot. He's not trying to acquire unfathomable wealth. He's just disgusted by the world he sees around him and wants to create a new one, by any means necessary. I also really enjoyed the introduction of Warlock. At the start of the movie when he shows up, I was kind of like, alright, damn, another super powerful space guy they have to fight. But then it turns out he's not the main villain for the movie and they actually have a completely different arc for him. I'm not up on his backstory from the comics and everything, but I really loved how the whole race of people are like physical perfection but just super dumb. Pretty cool character overall, who actually gets a pretty complete story arc despite not even being in like the top 5 characters with the most screen time. Definitely down to see him come back in another Marvel project. Like I said before, the James Gunn superhero movies are generally better, but not completely free from overly cheesy moments. I really want to rip on them for literally ending the movie with a dance scene. The most corny cop-out shit possible. But with how much of a role music plays in this series and the fact that it really seems like this is probably the last one they're going to do, they can kinda get away with it. Don't get me wrong, I didn't like it, but I can let it slide. Overall, I have to say Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was a great movie. Solidly entertaining and still pretty fun, but also definitely the darkest story in the trilogy, and a solid entry to end on if that's what they're doing. Out of all the Marvel series that exist now, I would definitely say that the Guardians of the Galaxy movies feel like they stand on their own the most, which is a huge achievement. Really fun series, and honestly one of the only Marvel series that I can confidently say I will be revisiting and watching all 3 movies in it at some point for sure. That's all I got with this one. Thanks for watching. If you got a minute to like and subscribe, that's awesome. If you're still here, there is one spoiler I wanted to talk about quickly, so if you haven't seen the movie, just leave right now. Alright, huge respect to this movie for not finding some way to give Gamora her memories back. I really thought they were going to find some way to restore her memory and give her and Quill a happy ending at the end there, but nah, in the end she just goes back to the Ravagers and Quill just has to be happy with what he's got, which feels way more real. So yeah, well done, good movie, good series, peace.